I'm seeing that newspapers are really catching the wave of revenue generation. They are really understanding that revenue solves so many problems. And in a day when revenue channels are so challenged by alternate advertising sources that are available to advertisers, it's key to do two things. Number one, take and strengthen our existing revenue channels. Number two, we need to build new channels, but we need to do both of those at the same time. And the important thing is to not to do one with the exclusion of the other. And that's where we focus at Brainworks, is to really build existing revenue channels while developing the new channels and using that additional revenue that we're getting from our existing channels to help us make those new channels possible. What we're finding when we go into newspapers nowadays is that existing revenue channels are being tapped into, however, not as effectively as they can be. Because often very many of the strategies and tactics for selling into those revenue channels are outdated. And that the newspaper is not using modern tools, technology, functionality, and workflow to address those revenue channels. So therefore, it's a limiting factor on the amount of revenue that can come into those channels. And I'm talking about all the traditional channels. Phone room advertising coming in, private party and commercial advertising coming into the phone room. I'm talking about outbound telemarketing. We're talking about outbound reps out there in the field. Very often, it's more the rule than the exception that newspapers are using very outdated methodologies for selling. So what Brainworks does is we come in and we take those existing channels and we completely supercharge them. So that now, instead of using outdated methodologies, outdated approaches, they've got all the tools. So that now, where they've got a revenue channel which is starting to be challenged, we can turn that around. Because we can make them so much more effective and so much more productive in things like maximizing the value of every ad that comes into the paper, getting more advertisers. That's a real challenged area. We really help that with our sales funnel functionality. Reaching out to people, marketing in new ways, and using outbound marketing with broadcast fax, broadcast email, telemarketing. This all is integrated into Brainworks, so it's one system. Instead of having an advertising system and then maybe a sales system on the side, we bring it all together. So now you've got one system, and you can do everything together in that system. Call up a customer, see everything about their account, see everything about their ad history, see everything about their sales activity, all together in one system. It's a tremendous advantage to have that all wrapped together. The biggest challenge for newspapers is really that their revenue channels are threatened. There are a lot of additional revenue streams out there that people are going to, that advertisers are looking to. And believe me, newspapers have been around for a long time, and there's a tremendous amount of money in newspapers. And so when the alternate media sources emerge, the first place they go is newspapers to try to peel those customers away and attract them to the new advertising channel. Any newspaper that you pick up, you have a list of their customers right there because their ads are right in the paper. So it's fertile ground for anyone opening up a new advertising channel because they just pick up the newspaper and read it, and they have a list of prospects right in front of them. It's different than radio, because radio, you'd have to listen to the radio all day to figure out who's advertising on it. In a newspaper, you pick it up and you've got a list right there. So it's very easy for other media channels to tap in and try to pick at the existing customers. So newspapers need to be sharp. We need to provide better value. We need to work more effectively. We need to sell more effectively, make sure that we provide value to the advertiser. We need to also make sure that we don't miss advertisers, prospective advertisers. Whereas before, it might have been okay to kind of sit back and see who rings the bell and knocks on the door. Now we have to be much more aggressive, much more outbound. The revenue is there if we go and get it. Newspapers definitely have to compete better nowadays. If you look at the alternate media sources, they are very often using much more advanced selling strategies than newspapers are. They come in using advanced CRM solutions, outbound marketing, email, faxing, telemarketing, using many of these approaches, database marketing. They're using all these things. So newspapers need to have those tools also to compete. Great news is that when newspapers have those tools, they can really ramp up what they're doing. They can really generate additional revenue. The answers are right there. Brainworks incorporates all of the new selling strategies into our product. With Brainworks, you don't just get an advertising system, because really, why replace your advertising system unless it's going to make you more money? So there's no point in unplugging one advertising system and plugging another one in just to have something newer. doesn't really provide you any value. So at Brainworks, we make sure that when you install a Brainworks system, you get a tremendous amount of additional value because you plug in the advertising system, and it's not just an advertising system. Yes, it's an advertising system, but on top of that, it's a selling system. It's designed at selling. It's going to count the money, but it's going to make the money. So instead of being a passive system where it's reliant upon all of the strength of your selling team on their own to generate the revenue and then bring it in and record it, that's passé. Brainworks now becomes a selling machine. It's a selling engine so that you mix it with your sales team and they can use these tools. When salespeople see what Brainworks offers, they get excited, very excited, because they see the potential of what they could generate with our tools, and it's phenomenal.